Good afternoon. It's Wednesday, June 8th. I'm Laura Cornfield, and this is IBA News, broadcasting from Jerusalem. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu is set to wrap up his visit to Russia later this afternoon. Earlier, he met with leaders of the Russian Jewish community, where he praised their ongoing efforts to improve relations between the two countries. Discussing the situation in Syria, Netanyahu told the Jewish leaders that Israel has no intention to intervene in the Syrian civil war, but will certainly not allow attacks from the country to be launched at Israel. Netanyahu made the comments one day after meeting with Russian President Vladimir Putin at the Kremlin. The topic of Syria was high on their agenda of talks, as well as other regional issues. The two leaders spoke of their plans to strengthen military cooperation and the need to act as a united front against international terrorism. Putin hailed the increasingly cordial ties between the two countries. Speaking last night at a joint press conference, the Russian president backed the two-state solution and the need for a comprehensive and just solution to the Israeli-Palestinian conflict that will not threaten Israel's security. While standing at the podium, Netanyahu was also forced to respond to some more domestic and personal issues. Reacting to charges that he received large sums of money from French millionaire Ono Mimran, Netanyahu declared that in his view the issue was closed and that it was time to move on. He downplayed claims, saying the mountain turned out to be a molehill and that it was part of ongoing efforts to politically hurt him and his wife, Sarah. Normalizing ties between Israel and Turkey was also the topic of discussion between President Vladimir Putin and Prime Minister Netanyahu. Putin said he welcomed the possibility that Jerusalem and Ankara will restore full diplomatic ties after almost 6 years. Turkey's foreign minister, however, sounded less optimistic. In an interview on Turkish television, Mevlut Cavusoglu said ties can only be restored after Israel agrees to lifting the embargo on the Gaza Strip and also lives up to its commitments to pay compensation to the families of the 9 Turkish activists killed in a May 2010 Israeli commando raid on the Turkish Mavi Marmara ship, which led to the deterioration of ties between the two countries. Coalition head Likud MK David Bitan met this morning with Interior Minister and Shas party head Aryeh Deri in an attempt to calm tensions and end the party's boycott of Knesset committees and plenum voting, which they began earlier today. The sudden sanctions by Shas on parliamentary activity were in response to reported racist remarks made by Rami Sadan, the newly appointed chairman of Channel 10's board of directors. Sadan allegedly said he hates the Shas party and called Deri a thief. The remarks caused an outrage, drawing harsh condemnation from across the political spectrum. Shas threatened a coalition crisis if Sadan would not be fired. Bitan told Deri that following a conclusive investigation, the remarks were exaggerated and asked that the Shas party refrain from its political sanctions. Deri was not pleased with the response and said he will raise it with his party members later this afternoon. Meanwhile, the war of versions continued today, with Sadan denying the allegations against him and insisting he never made the controversial comments and that he was being framed. The Director General of the Communications Ministry gave Sadan his backing, saying the probe shows that the comments were never made. However, Channel 10 News CEO Golan Yochpaz testified that Sadan indeed made the comments in question. Defense Minister Avigdor Lieberman warned the country's enemies not to try and test Israel. Lieberman made the remarks during a tour of the northern border Tuesday, his first such visit to the area since taking office. During his tour, the defense minister heard security assessments from Chief of Staff Gadi Eisenkot, as well as the head of the Northern Command, Major General Aviv Kochavi, and other senior officers. Speaking to reporters, Lieberman said he was impressed by the preparations and readiness of troops. He stressed the Army's role is to ensure calm prevails along the northern border, and that is what the IDF is doing. In related developments, the Syrian website Zaman al-Wasi has reported that Israeli Air Force jets targeted a Hezbollah missile storage facility and a number of Syrian military sites said to be housing advanced weaponry over the weekend. According to the report published Tuesday, the airstrikes occurred after midnight on Sunday in areas located 13 kilometers north of Homs. It claimed Syrian air defense systems identified the entry of Israeli jets into the country's airspace, but refrained from firing. There was no comment from Israel concerning the claims. In the past, Israel reportedly conducted a number of airstrikes in Syria aimed at wiping out advanced weaponry systems belonging to Hezbollah. Israeli aerospace industries displayed its latest development in attack and suicide drones. Called Rotem, the drone can be deployed in urban areas and has a high level of accuracy. The four-propeller device, which can be operated by a tablet computer, weighs 4.5 kilos, enabling soldiers to carry more than one in a backpack. The drone is capable of carrying grenades and a camera and can effectively avoid obstacles, enter windows, and maneuver around fences. It has the ability to hover over a target area for up to 30 minutes, allowing its operator to collect intelligence. The IAI also announced increased sales of the drone Guard made by its Elta subsidiary. The system is fitted with technology capable of jamming enemy aircraft or unmanned aerial vehicles. Imad Abu Shamsia, the B'Tselem photographer who documented the Hebron shooting in March, which led to the incrimination of IDF soldier Elior El-Azaria, testified before the Jaffa military court today. Abu Shamsia said he heard gunfire and left his house to film and saw a person wearing a black coat lying on the ground. He then heard noises and saw another man on the ground and continued to film. Abu Shamsia denied having edited the film, which was released by B'Tselem. The footage created widespread outrage after it showed Azaria shooting the terrorist already on the ground. Outside the courtroom, supporters of the soldier protested the photographer's testimony. Does the Army take international law seriously? One major NGO is unconvinced. IBA's Elon Aslan-Levy reports.
Anti-occupation NGO B'Tselem has announced it will no longer refer complaints by Palestinians to the IDF for investigation. I met B'Tselem's director, Chagai Elad, to understand why.
We have more experience than any other Israeli organization in good faith, trying to give the military authorities to prove themselves that they are indeed sincere and serious with regard to establishing accountability. But after hundreds of cases with results that more often than not result in impunity, we had to come to the conclusion that this is a system that does not provide accountability, does not provide justice, and in fact serves as an effective whitewash.
The IDF claims it opened an investigation into the Hebron shooting incident before the B'Tselem video was made public. Some might argue it doesn't need B'Tselem at all.
Whether indeed an investigation was opened before or after the video was published and the relation between the two, I'll let others speculate with regard to that. It is true that the responsibility, the duty to investigate, the legal responsibility to investigate has nothing to do with B'Tselem. The authorities have a responsibility to investigate when there are suspicions of wrongdoing by Israeli soldiers or police officers.
The IDF has proven it intends to pursue the prosecution of Sergeant Azaria ferociously despite intense public criticism. Does that not show it's capable of acting by itself?
Hebron is really such an exceptional case. The video footage has been so clear, and the attention, both locally and internationally, to the case, I think has really made it impossible for the system to whitewash that case.
In your report, you claim that in the absence of B'Tselem, Palestinians have no other avenue available to file complaints against the military system. Do you stand by that?
The system is built in such a way that it cannot accept complaints directly from Palestinians. It has to come through a human rights organization or through a lawyer or in some other way or fashion. So of course, while we are calling also on the Palestinian public not to file complaints, every family has agency to make up its own opinion, and they can file complaints.
Is it possible that in the instances where no investigation was opened or an investigation was closed, that it's because there was a genuine difficulty in getting evidence, or because the allegations were themselves fabricated or exaggerated?
The 700 cases that our report relates to are just a fraction of the total number of cases. These are just the cases in which we have performed a sufficiently thorough investigation that has established a serious suspicion through cross-checking testimonies by a number of witnesses, collecting evidence, and so on and so forth. So you can only imagine the number of cases that haven't even reached the level of filing a complaint because there were lack of data.
Are you at peace with future possible violations going unpunished because you decided to undermine a, by your contention, limited legal mechanism?
The system has undermined itself. It's not B'Tselem which is undermining the system. What we are doing is exposing the truth about the system. This is a system that hasn't provided justice for a generation, and the belief that it will suddenly start to do so in the absence of a departure from business as usual by a human rights organization is a false hope.
The Turkel Commission, which includes international rapporteurs, came to the conclusion that Israel's mechanisms for examining allegations of violations of international humanitarian law generally comply with Israel's obligations under international law. What does B'Tselem know that the Turkel Commission doesn't?
With all respect to the Turkel Commission, no one has first-hand direct experience for such a long time as B'Tselem does in dealing with these issues. I think a lot of hope was put at some stage on the Turkel Committee recommendations, and I think that the years that have passed since that committee made its recommendations and the lack of implementation of them just tells another chapter in this unfortunate story.
On a slightly different matter, in light of B'Tselem's receipt of a majority of its funding from foreign governments to lobby Israel on its security policy, would it be fair to characterize B'Tselem as a tool of European foreign policy?
We're very proud of our funding, both international funding and local funding. The issue of the occupation is not a domestic Israeli issue. It is an issue of great international concern, which is also true with regard to human rights in general. Human rights in general always know no border.
You disagree, but do you understand the concerns of people who are worried about the receipt of funding from foreign governments in order to lobby a government on its policy?
Actually, I don't. Our funding is completely transparent, and I think it's only natural and something that we should all support, that there is international attention and is international support in an attempt to improve the human rights situation in the occupied territories.
In response, the IDF spokesman's office called the picture represented in B'Tselem's report biased, saying it does not represent reality. The Army is committed to the rule of law, and its law enforcement mechanisms operate professionally and thoroughly. The spokesman's office added the IDF will continue to investigate all information presented to it, including from B'Tselem, in an effort to get to the truth. In regional news, 3 Turkish police officers were killed and more than 20 policemen and civilians were injured when a car bomb exploded outside a police station in the southeast Turkish province of Mardin today. The attack occurred in the town of Midyat, north of the Syrian border. Extensive damage was caused to the front of the building from the force of the blast, and thick smoke was seen rising at the site. Reports from the site said clashes erupted between members of the Turkish security forces and Kurdish Workers' Party after the explosion. Today's bombing comes one day after 11 people were killed when a car packed with explosives blew up next to a bus full of police officers in downtown Istanbul. In a victory speech before thousands of supporters, Democrat presidential nominee Hillary Clinton declared history had been made, saying it is the first time a woman captured the nomination of a major political party. Taking to the stage at the Brooklyn Navy Yard, exulting under a glass ceiling, she appealed for party unity against Donald Trump, saying the night caps an amazing journey. Her rival Bernie Sanders refused to bow out, telling supporters the fight would continue to the Democratic National Convention next month.
And it may be hard to see tonight, but we are all standing under a glass ceiling right now. But don't worry, we're not smashing this one. Thanks to you, we've reached a milestone. The first time in our nation's history that a woman will be a major party's nominee.
Here at home, the Knesset marked Global Environment Day, which brought lawmakers from opposing parties together to address the issue. IBA's Ari O'Sullivan reports.
Israel may not have an environment minister for the moment since the resignation of Avi Gabay, but that hasn't stopped Knesset members from across the political spectrum from coming together to discuss ways to improve and protect the environment. Most of the committees devoted the day to examining environmental issues such as recycling, disposing batteries, protecting the seashores, and developing green energies. Some even demonstrated the system to power lights and recharge mobile phones by pedal power.
We are working together and cooperating, not only today, we will cooperate throughout this Knesset and in the future, because society and environment are something that are important for everybody. Doesn't matter men, male, female, left, right, Sephardi, Ashkenazi, new immigrant, veteran, they're all the same. It's the same society, it's the same world, and we all are here to bring and turn this world into be a much better place to live in.
we're facing today, the world is facing a disaster. The climate change is here, it's right now here, and we have to solve it. And we're here to show that all Knesset members from all parties, from different views, are working together, and we should work together much more in order to bring Israel and the world to a better place.
Yes, I think climate crisis is already happening, and energy is one of the main, it's in the center. Here in the Knesset we're celebrating the International Environmental Day for, I think, I don't know, for many, many years now, and it's getting more and more critical every year. So we are proud to be gathered here for the sake of the environment. It's for the health, the quality of life, and actually for the life of each and every one of us.
By the way, the Israeli parliament, I think, is the only parliament in the world that it develops solar energy. On the roof of the Knesset is solar energy. I think that's the best message we can do. And Israel is supposed to be a light to the nations, and we're going to be a light to the nations.
The city of Netanya has honored a Japanese diplomat who assisted thousands of European Jews in World War II to escape from the Nazis by naming a street after him. In late July of 1940, diplomat Shuni Sugihara, also known as the Japanese Schindler, served in Lithuania and began issuing visas to Jews living there in order to facilitate their escape from the advancing German army. He succeeded in issuing some 6,000 visas to members of the Jewish community before he was forced to shut down the embassy and leave the country. Sugihara's son and family members attended the Netanya Street naming ceremony.
Thank you very much for the street by my father's name. My father once showed refugees the way to escape from Holocaust. And this street now show young people the future next to this very meaningful planetarium.
Now to a story about capturing the moment. Israeli photographer Gal Zanir was the proud recipient of this year's Africa Geographic Photographer of the Year award given by the acclaimed National Geographic magazine. Zanir's impressive photograph of two zebras, who look as if they're attached at the head, garnered him the prestigious prize. His submission was chosen from a wide selection of more than 10,000 photos. Zanir said he took the picture while on a trip to Namibia and originally didn't even want to post the picture on Facebook, but his friends convinced him to put it up. For those who think he digitally played around with the picture using Photoshop, Zanir says he takes it as a compliment and insists the photo was by no means edited, not even cropped. In local finance, shares were down in the Tel Aviv Stock Exchange, while the shekel weakened in foreign currency trading. Here are the numbers.